Metro don't trust you, I'm gonna beautiful morning, yeah, the sun in my morning bed.
I know I am absolutely in the minority here, but I think EA shelving Need for Speed is a good thing. Need for Speed has always been stuck between trying to be this action-packed underground street racing nostalgia-driven game that caters to all the old fans and trying to be a modern open-world Forza-style arcade that caters towards all the new ones. There is not one person in this entire community that can tell me that they have done either one of those things or both of them well, or even pretty well. And that is exactly my point. The truth is, Need for Speed hasn't known what it wants to be for over a decade, and it's been having an identity crisis the entire time. The fact that a series has been out for this long and doesn't know what direction it even wants to go anymore because it wants to chase trends is embarrassing. We got one side that has a bunch of fanboys stuck in the past crying for a remake or remaster that will never happen, and then you got the casuals and those who play for 30 minutes a week not even being able to tell the difference between Need for Speed and Forza anymore. At this point, shelving the franchise might be the only way to save it. Just like God of War and Doom had to die before being brought back into fantastic games, Need for Speed needs to go. Let people miss it and then come back with a real vision. But the cycle of dragging the name of Need for Speed through the dirt for extra money every single year or every other year, we gotta cut that out, man. Now, a disclaimer. It's perfectly normal to feel bad about Need for Speed being shelved. The series meant a lot to people, and losing it does sting for not just the common player, but also for us content creators. How you think we feel? We've built our channels around the franchise only to find out that it's being taken out for a fat minute with no solid return date. I'll tell you firsthand, it feels like someone spit in my face. But at some point, we've got to grow up and face reality. This is how the industry works. EA didn't kill Need for Speed because they hate racing fans. They shelved it because they wanted to throw every possible resource at Battlefield and their biggest moneymakers. That's the truth, bro. Businesses exist to make money, and that's it. It sucks, but if we're gonna cry about it like some kids instead of accepting the bigger picture, then we're missing the entire point. Sometimes the games we love have to be sacrificed for corporate priorities, and as frustrating as it is, being an adult means recognizing that harsh reality instead of pretending EA operates out of love for the fans. Even though that is the biggest reason why the series is in the position it currently is in, there are still good things to come out of this, and that's what we will be discussing further in this video. Who knows? With Need for Speed finally being gone, maybe the arcade racing scene can finally grow again for once. I don't know about y'all, but this is possibly the worst state the arcade racing scene has ever been in. No hot titles that shake up the scene, no games that are keeping players engaged for more than a month, nothing to really look forward to that isn't dropping years from now. It's terrible out here, and Need for Speed may have been one of the reasons for that. Not saying it was the sole reason, I'm saying it may have been one of the many possibilities. For years on top of years, Need for Speed has been the one thing everyone needed to look out for, almost like GTA of the arcade racing market. It ate up all the spotlight while contributing almost nothing meaningful to the genre in regards to the modern games. Every time a Need for Speed title dropped, no matter how mid, it pretty much soaked up all the marketing for every other game, and all the more innovative arcade racers faded out. Think about how many smaller racing games are probably out there that wanted to start up a franchise but didn't because they were afraid of what Need for Speed was doing and how they had a monopoly on the arcade genre. Now, this isn't a personal problem for everyone in the community, but it still impacts us because we need more stuff to play than some copy and paste Need for Speed game. By shelving the franchise, EA is finally getting out of the way, and that might be the best thing that happened to arcade racing in decades. Now, fresh ideas can finally breathe without being compared to a washed up brand clinging to relevance. Let's all ask ourselves an honest question. Has Need for Speed really been leading the genre due to the amazing content that has been released over the years? Or has it just been dropping games to make sure it stays at the top? Need for Speed hasn't led the genre in years. Let's talk about what was said earlier about the franchise being made year after year just to be dragged through the mud. First, we gotta stop pretending like Need for Speed is some untouchable god tier series that deserves a bunch of loyalty. The last few years have been a cycle of hype, disappointment, excuses, and then maybe people start to realize how good a game it actually was way too late. No cap, that's how it is. It's clear as day in the subreddits, on YouTube, on every single social media platform the community has touched. Every new entry was hyped as the big comeback, and every single time it ended up being forgettable, straight up bad, or embarrassing due to no content, failed content, or bad decisions. At this point, keeping the franchise alive is less about honoring its history and legacy, and more about EA milking nostalgia from fans who can't admit the series has been irrelevant for a few years now. At this point, I would consider what EA is doing as straight up mercy. No glaze to EA, because you know I don't like them. Because it stops Need for Speed from sinking further into the same pit of terrible that a lot of these other games have been thrown into. It's better to let the brand rest with at least some dignity than keep dragging its corpse around for cash. And then we have EA treating Need for Speed like a cash cow. It's always so funny how a lot of these topics we cover somehow end up back on the subject of EA and what they will do for money. The downfall of Need for Speed isn't just about bad design and alright games being released, it's about EA treating the franchise like a bank they just want to withdraw funds from instead of actually investing into a project. Every recent entry felt like it was created in a boardroom full of people who have never driven over the speed limit a day in their life, stuffed with a bunch of live service gimmicks, microtransactions, and half-baked online systems nobody has ever asked for. I mean, we don't even have to talk about Unbound. Let's talk about Heat and how the only meaningful thing they added into the game was a car that you had to pay for. It wasn't even free. Then to make matters worse, that was it. One car, nothing else. If that doesn't scream, let's try to get as much money while doing the bare minimum, I don't know what does. Instead of focusing on great gameplay that would want to make the community play the game for more than 2 weeks, car culture, and proper races in the game, EA shoved the series into the same soulless technique they use for FIFA and Madden. That greed? One of the highest reasons why this series is the way it is. Ending this franchise temporarily might finally force EA to confront that reality. A lot of y'all think that Forza is soulless as well, but I mean, look at why Forza thrives while Need for Speed flops. It's not just about the prettier graphics or bigger maps, it's because these games are built with more than ideas on a piece of paper that a secretary came up with. If putting Need for Speed on ice makes EA realize that they can't keep shipping lazy rehashes and expecting nostalgia to carry sales, then good. I say let the series die for as long as it needs to. I am not saying that we don't need a Need for Speed game. I'm not a huge Need for Speed fanboy and I did not grow up playing all the games over and over again, but I will admit this. The racing genre still needs what Need for Speed brought to the table. No other major franchise leaned into pure arcade style racing and gameplay the way that NFS did. The nitro usage, the cop chases, the street culture, the customization, all the stuff people like about Need for Speed, yeah, only Need for Speed does that. Forza Horizon might be super polished and fleshed out and the crew might be right alongside them, but neither scratches the same itch the way Need for Speed does. And that's exactly why shelving the series isn't necessarily a bad thing. The game needs to come back with purpose, not just because we feel like it needs to drop every other year. The community needs to understand that letting Need for Speed sit in the vault doesn't erase the game. It doesn't erase the franchise. The franchise is still going to be important. Y'all don't want half-baked stuff anymore though, right? So let the franchise cook. Except this time, instead of in the microwave, it'll be in a crock pot.